Hello and welcome to the Purple Ray channel today. We are starting a series called Consciousness Revealed. It's with Terry, who is the author of several books, and he has looked into consciousness a lot during his life. And so I would like to welcome Terry. Hello, Terry.
Thank you. Hello.
Maybe we start out by you telling us a little bit about yourself, why you're interested in consciousness and how you came to, be interested in these topics.
Yes, fine. Well, it really, I was born psychic as a child and had lots of experiences of spirits coming to me, and from the even when I was in the pram, apparently, I was saying things. And as I grew up, I started to develop an interest in science, and I found that the scientific model of existence, I was very young, I'm talking about 9 or 10 years old, I read fairly basic books for children about science, and I realized that people didn't accept or understand the experiences I was having. So a desire began to form in my mind that I would like to bring together my experiences of the spirit world with the scientific outlook. Something somewhere was wrong. There's a mismatch. And I was hoping that as I didn't have any clear idea at that age, obviously, but I had this desire beginning to grow to understand both science and the spiritual, and in some way resolve them with one another.
It's like a bit like a theory of everything together, a unified theory of everything. Okay, yes.
And so as I got older, I ended up studying science. I did a degree in physics and another one, an MSc in information science. And this was all useful preparation for what was to come. I lost my psychic abilities in my teens. I actually lost it when fear came in. I saw television programs that made me fear the spiritual contacts I was having, and I became afraid of the dark, things like that, and that drove it all away. So in my 20s, I started to develop as a medium with limited success. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But now, looking back on the pattern, I can see that all that was useful training for what I'm doing now, which is, in a sense, you could say it's like mediumship of consciousness and the spiritual world, understanding it. And another way of seeing it is that I've lost the plot here. I'm trying to do the work in the way that a shaman would work, by delving into the unconscious and the symbolic patterns in the higher consciousness. So we've got a super conscious mind and an unconscious mind, and I'm trying to explore those to identify what consciousness consists of and how it works. So that's where I am at the moment.
So you still getting psychic insights at this moment, yeah?
Yes, yesterday I had a massive one from my point of view, and it goes on and on and on. It just amazes me.
Would you like to tell us about yesterday's insight and sharing with our viewers?
I will, but I won't just say it, because if I say what it is, it will sound like nothing. It wouldn't be very impressive. The point about this is not the knowledge, but the experience of it. Because when you experience something in consciousness, it makes it much more real than if you simply read it in a book.
I'm just thinking, because a lot of people are not psychic, they don't have these experiences, but maybe you could try to convey also how you felt, what that changed for you, because that's why we are here with this medium, a film or videos bring an experience to a viewer rather than a book sometimes can. So maybe we can help those who are not as psychic as you to get a glimpse of what you experienced yesterday.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Well, to start with, the insight I had yesterday, it deals with the idea of number. Now, I want to explain what number means. We think of numbers, in the plural, but there is, in universal consciousness, it appears that there are not numbers, there is only number. And like many of these things, it's like mind. We feel that we have individual minds, but in fact there is only one mind, but we all tap into it. And it's the same with number. There is only one number, but it can take infinite values. Okay. So does that make sense?
Oh, we're getting there. Let me just
Yes.
get into this.
So
I'm just wondering, but when you get this insight, do you see like a film? Do you see images? Do you hear things? Do you just know it all of a sudden? How did this happen for you yesterday? If you could share this.
It happens as a feeling rather than an image. My first exploration into the nature of consciousness began in 1992 when I shifted my consciousness. And what I learned to do was to stop thinking, because our thoughts get in the way. Our thoughts are objective, but true consciousness is subjective and abstract. That it has meaning, but it is not specific to information or particular forms, if that makes sense. So what I would do was empty my mind, and I would breathe in a certain way. And I found that sometimes it would come as a vision. The very first vision I had was of glowing spheres in a chain in a dark void, a black space, if you like. And I felt that these were fractals, but I didn't really understand it. But my brain got hot and readjusted itself and rewired itself, and I began to understand. And I had a friend who got me into this, and he kept giving me books that confirmed the things I was feeling. But getting actual images is quite rare for me. Mostly what I get is an abstract feeling, and it can be very difficult to unravel these and turn them into ideas that you can put into words. And the only way I can really do that is through the use of metaphors, because a metaphor is an understandable representation of some abstract concept that isn't so understandable, that can't be translated into form. So I think I've been very fortunate over the years that my mind has come up with lots of metaphors that I've taken mostly from science and technology, things like networks, computers, digital systems, and they're very useful in giving you models that can indicate reality, but you can't actually express that reality. Yeah. So that's the problem with consciousness, that you can experience it in an abstract sense, but the finite brain, the mind that we use in this planet while we're here, cannot understand directly infinite thought. So that's the experience.
And you mentioned fractals. Would you like to explain what you understand by fractals?
A fractal is simply a repeating pattern that you can assemble into some form, and it gives you what it gives you is a very simple equation, mathematical equation, can lead to an extremely complex, infinitely complex form. So if anybody if you look up the Mandelbrot set in the on YouTube, you'll see videos where people go into this set. You see all sorts of color patterns and intricate shapes, and the overall shape that you start with keeps coming up as you delve into the pattern. You can literally go into the pattern forever. There's no end to it, but all it is taking a number, squaring it, and feeding it back into the equation and plotting that on a graph. So that's a very simple mathematical form, but it's far from simple when you actually look at the translation. Mm-hmm. All this takes us into something called chaos theory. And but the point really is that consciousness is mathematics. It's entirely structured mathematically, and we are the whole universe and ourselves. We are mathematical forms. What that mathematics isn't so important as understanding the role of mathematics. I can't describe all of the intricacies of the processes involved, but yesterday evening, I've been aware for some time that the idea of number has two aspects to it. A number has a value, and it has a meaning or an essence, a quality. So if you the one fundamental number has the first value that you think of, there are two. There is 1 and there is 0, which is not 1. But then a number, the number can go, next number is 2, 3, 4. They have qualities of oneness, two-ness, three-ness, four-ness, and so on, back to infinity. And it is the quality, the essence of numbers that is the key to understanding what the reality is all about. The essence of a number, the essence of the number 1 is oneness, which is also we can describe as love. And that is the source of everything. The source of all consciousness, as we understand it, is oneness. Does that? How do you feel about that?
Yes.
That idea?
Yes. I'd like to tie this in with the fractals again, because my analogy for understanding fractals is a hologram, and most people have come across a hologram and know if you cut off or just take a piece of the hologram, all the information is in there. The whole picture is in there, even if you just take a piece. So it's a picture within a picture within a picture, and it's the same thing. It's depicted basically to infinity, however small you go and however big you go. So we can get lost in the fractals and see these individual pictures, or we can say it's actually all one, because this is a fractal pattern. This is all one pattern, all one hologram. That is how I would explain it, if that makes sense to you,
So it does, totally. But the point, what I'm trying to get at is the concept of mathematics. A fractal is just one aspect of mathematics. It is important in the way the universe is created and exists, but what I'm trying to pin down is what consciousness is, and this idea is that all life, all existence, all consciousness comes from oneness, which we call the light, and it's the process that leads to fractals, there has to be something that translates meaning into form.
Yeah.
Form, the fractal is simply a device that form uses to express itself.
So number gives structure to consciousness, and
Yes.
Patterns are created. If
Yes.
we think of the human body, the DNA is a pattern in some way, you know, and
Yes.
Otherwise there would be nothing physical, because it's any physical body is some kind of a structure, you know, like cells hang together, cells form tissue, and tissue form organs, and all this, and then all the organs together form the body of a human being, for example. So it all starts without number or fractals. There would be no physical reality in a way.
No, but I'm getting to a state that is much more fundamental than that. The point is that if you take the essence of numbers, see, oneness is whole, totally whole, but what we require, or what is a thought? A thought is on one dimension, it's an essence of meaning, and on another, it's an expression of value. Now, if you take oneness as there's what is it within oneness that allows us to a thought to happen, and basically what it is that in terms of numbers, all consciousness is constructed. If you think of numbers, different numbers as like bricks, you take the bricks and you build a structure, and that's what we call mind. Mind takes simple, very basic ideas of meaning, units of meaning, and converts them, assembles them into complex meanings. So, you know, a human being is an extremely complex pattern of meaning with so many dimensions and levels to it, haven't you? You've got your body, your atoms, your cells, and all that. You've got your mind, you've got your environment. It's something constructs all this from thought. So what I'm getting at is, what is a thought? And the basis of thoughts is what we call the prime numbers. The prime numbers are the key to understanding consciousness. So if you take the objective is for the oneness to understand itself and its own nature by exploring the prime numbers. So if you take if you take a simple number, say, you know, like the number, well, the number one is about existence. You exist because the number one has the property of being a unit, something singular. So every thought that exists is an expression of the number one. And the quality of oneness is the experience of that number. Now, the number two is the relationship between ones. So we're having a conversation. You are one individual, I am one individual. But while we are speaking, we are activating the meaning of two-ness. If you have three people together, that's an expression of three-ness. Do you see? That's a very simple idea, but it becomes extremely complex when you think about the meaning that we've got in life now. I mean, the meaning behind everything that we are doing is so complex, and it's getting more and more complex. So it is terms, it's value. So if you think about the word value, so you have the essence, wants to understand itself, and it does this through the value of numbers. Value is the property, if you like, of what is something worth to you. How do you appreciate? Do you think an idea is something you like or not like? That is one of the most fundamental aspects of existence in form. There are things we like and things we don't like. So what we automatically do is apply some value to everything. You know, you put a value on relationships, you put a value on your possessions. Value is what the world is all about. So the value aspect of numbers is the consciousness that is, if you like, finite. It can be physical, or it can be a specific thought, whereas the essence is simply the feeling of the thought. So we exist in a universe constructed of value, and the oneness is we experience things here. So you take your as a form, as a human being, you've got the five senses, and I see a sixth sense, and that is your brain consciousness. That isn't your real consciousness. That is like another sense organ that we use while we're here. So you can say we've got six senses, but you don't experience them in the physical. Your sight, you might see with your eyes, and it creates an image, but you really see in the mind, in the abstract, in the infinite. So we are infinite existence, experiencing form through the senses. And what we do is we assemble our sensory experience into the universe we're in. So the universe doesn't really exist. Each one of us is an individual in the infinite state, and we just happen to be sharing the version of the universe that is common to us all. So your universe is the same universe that I'm assembling in my consciousness, but everything is, you as an infinite being, you have the capacity to create an entire universe and experience it. But because of the fractal nature of it, you think of yourself as an individual. So you come into separation. And it is the value quality of numbers that has allowed you to exist in the belief that you are an individual separate from all others. Whereas the reality is that we are simply aspects of one, the one consciousness, the abstract, subjective meaning behind everything. Is that becoming, is that anywhere near understandable?
I'm just thinking, even though we live in the illusion of being separate from the one, we give a very unique, or we are having a very unique perspective on what is the structure of the universe, the physical reality, and thus the one source, or whatever you would like to call it, can experience itself.
Yes,
one
exactly.
source is looking, let's say, through my eyes at you, Terry,
Yes.
and Desiree experiences Terry, and Terry experiences Desiree. But what is really happening is that source or oneness is looking at itself, at different aspects of itself, to explore to explore. I don't know exactly what to explore,
It-
but yes, otherwise, if the one is only in oneness, what is there to do? You know, there's nothing. I mean,
yes,
it can just remain in oneness for eternity, but there's no growth, no nothing. So I always feel that the one got bored or something like that, and I just
yes.
wanted to explore and grow, and but it became so infinitely complex, this whole pattern. And if we think of the numbers, I was also thinking there's numerology who deals with numbers. We have different numbers in different aspects of our lives. Astrology has the first, the second, third house, and so on. So we are combinations of these numbers, and that's why we're becoming unique combinations of numbers, very complex. Every human being, every personality even is very complex, but very, that's how this unique viewpoint comes into being, and that's very exciting, I think.
That is the essence of what I'm trying to explain. You got it. She's got it. The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. That's that. You've got the idea.
Yes.
You've cracked it. That is
Yeah.
precisely what I'm trying to explain.
Yes.
So, there is no duality. The duality is invented by consciousness to experience. But there's no separation in the oneness. There are no finite limitations. There can't be. You can't have anything limiting in the infinite. So the way it works is that the infinite state needs to find a way of taking on individual number values or number essences. The way it works is the idea of a center. So if you go back to the Taijitu, the yin yang symbol, what you've got is a state of white. You know, it looks like a tennis ball, doesn't it? You've got white on one side, black on the other. White is the active consciousness or the light of oneness. The other side is the dark, is the unconscious state. This is what we call the shadow. This is where the not version of everything is. So cold is not heat, but unless you experience cold, you can't fully understand heat. And that's what we are. So we are an expression of an infinite divine consciousness, experiencing what it is not in order to understand what it is, if that makes any sense. But the key to it is the two dots, the white dot in the light, the white dot in the dark, and the dark dot in the light. And this is what brings everything together into form. And we call it, have you heard of David Bohm, a scientist, the implica order? Well, the implica order, implication is now more fashionably known as entanglement, because quantum physics is the mathematics of units, and units are expressions of the number one.
So entanglement is also what Einstein called spooky, was something spooky at a distance.
Yes. Well,
yes.
because
a spooky action at a distance.
Yes,
and
because
that means that when
exactly.
one electron is affected in some way here, in a distance, the other electron that is connected or entangled with that first electron will behave the same way. And
yes.
It's actually not spooky if you think that all is one. Then it makes complete sense, you know.
Yes, so. Because you see, if you take two particles that are formed in some experiment, they go off in two different directions.
Particles.
It doesn't matter how far away they go. If one goes through a shift in some form, spin or whatever. The other one is affected and goes through the same shift. And that's because they started out from a common event, and that in the infinite oneness, that means they have a relationship or a connection or a feeling within infinity. And so, and that bypasses space and time. So of course, you see, you get identical twins. Some twins are totally different from one another. They just because they're twins doesn't mean to say they do the same things or dress the same. But other sets of twins do kind of match, don't they? And they can be brought up in different parts of the world without knowing one another. And when they meet up years later, they find that they wear the same things or did the same things, all sorts of things that that are the same. And that's because they are totally entangled in the oneness, because you can't account for that with us. You see, DNA is not the cause of everything. DNA reflects the information, that's all.
And I'm also thinking that what we're just talking about could also explain the phenomenon of soulmates in a way, because
yes,
twins are similar on a physical level, but they're two different consciousness, units of consciousness, whereas soulmates, they're not more like they resonate on a consciousness level. They might look very different, but they're resonating like these two particles at a distance,
yes,
So
yes,
yes.
So this is the mechanism. Now, if you take oneness and you take the idea of not one, and you think of it as a center or an infinitely small point of non-existence, then on the Taijutsu, the yin yang diagram, you've got your white area with the black dot. The black dot gives meaning to the oneness in an individualized sense. So what that means is that you can think of that dot as a center. Another word for it would be a heart. So that dot in its most fundamental form represents the heart center, the chakra. So our primary consciousness is in the heart, not in the head. And it's the feeling, the essence of existence that the oneness is accumulating. And it does this through the prime numbers, so that each one of us, the way I see it, is each one of us is probably a manifestation of a prime number. When, there was a series in the 60s called The Prisoner. I don't know, would you remember this? He says, I am not a number, I am a free man. Well, unfortunately, he is a number, but it was interesting. He was the number 6, and the number 6 appears to relate to individual consciousness. So, we rely on all numbers, we accumulate our experience and then feed that experience into the oneness. So the way it's, and in terms of the physical, this is where we can get into the fractal side of it. We are in a twin layered dimension. If you look at the Taijutsu, you've got your black area and your white area. The circle around the outside represents the infinite. But what about the wavy line in the middle? Can you see that there is a curve? That represents the concept of vibration. So this is another key idea, that the the lowest dimension relates to the zero. So we are always what they call 0 points. Have you heard of 0 point energy? Where they're talking about extracting energy from the continuum.
I have heard about it.
Well, because yes, it doesn't matter how it works. It's this dimension we experience, we call the quantum digital dimension. It's made of information. But the parallel level higher than us relates to the number 1. And the number 1 is what we call linear. It's about lines. So there is a network that links everything together. All concepts, all numbers are linked by lines of light. And another way of expression for it is the matrix. It's become popular. So there is a matrix that is really the, if you like, a structural diagram. It's a blueprint, a plan, and that converts into the quantum digital dimension. It's not really as complicated. So, but if you're looking at it in the Taijitu, the light area is where all the action is really happening. That's where the essence of experience takes place. The dark area is the quantum digital information, which basically means particles of matter. And the wavy line is about vibration, color, shades of meaning, things like that.
Would it, if I may interrupt?
Yes, of course.
You spoke of the unconscious and what's happening in the background.
Yes.
The analogy that comes to mind for me is, for example, on a computer, we see certain images, a program running with a certain layout, but in the background, there's code,
Yes, exactly. Noughts and ones.
When people design a website, then you can, we see lovely images, but behind all this is this HTML code. And I think that would kind of tie in with what you were just saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the first thing I'd like to say. This is when you bring it down to the yin and yang, basically. But I also feel that there are many different levels of looking at reality in between. So it all starts with yin yang, so the polarization. But the more we went into matter, the more differentiated everything became. So we've added a lot of numbers, I mean, we can express the numbers we have in our number system also with a binary code, just with ones and zeros. It becomes very long. So at the basis of this is this, the first step was polarization. When the source, wanted to experience itself, it had to polarize first. But now we are at a state here in the physical level where it has become infinitely complex with many numbers. And we are not just experiencing this physical reality. I mean, the example you had, you're getting these psychic insights.
Yes.
People have gut feelings.
Yes.
And so on. There are other levels we have glimpses of. We're not just here in this body, No. So there are infinite number of levels. And like the fractal says, the question is always, where do we focus our attention at any given time? Do we come from a point of oneness, but then we can't live in this body? So this can be there, but we also have to be here at the same time, at this specificity. So I think there are many levels, and sometimes we are aware of them running at the same time. And for me, I would call this multidimensionality, or multidimensional awareness that we are able to have if we wish, or
Yes,
we could
exactly.
just limit ourselves to this physical, very complex and specific existence, or we could also, people talk about, we are physical beings, we are emotional, mental, and spiritual. These are already 4 divisions. We exist on many different levels. When we make a decision, we might think this is the logical way to proceed, but our heart tells us something else. So there's also already different levels to our own existence on a very mundane level. So just to bring that a bit like to the mundane level as well, what does it mean for a human being with all these codes running and the fractals? How does this express itself on an individual basis for a human being? So I just like to add this here. So yeah.
Yes. No, well,
Over to you again.
You've summarized all these ideas very well. I mean, you've put it very clearly, and that is what I'm trying to lead to. But all I'm trying to do is point at the simple ideas that underlie all that. All that becomes complicated, doesn't it, in practice? But the ideas behind it, like chaos theory, like fractals, are extremely simple.
And chaos theory, can you explain what that is?
Well, it's, I think yes, I mean, chaos theory, it really is saying that what appear to be complicated processes, like the weather, are really based on simple rules of mathematics in operation. So, for example, if you just take a number and keep squaring it, and you end up with the Mandelbrot fractal, you've gone from the most simple thing you can imagine to the most complex thing you can imagine. But they're not separate; they are the same. The fractal is simply a conscious insight into the nature of a very simple equation. Do you see what I mean? So the universe, you see, if you think about it, the most key numbers, I'm talking about numbers, the key numbers in our terms are the first 7. I mean, I know there are many more. That's just but we talk about the 7 colors, the 7 notes in an octave, the 7 days of the week. Why is everything in 7s? And that is because the number 7 is a prime number, and it is the number that gathers all the experience of our division into 7 layers. And the 7 layers, there is it relates to what we call the chakras. The chakras are simply mathematical processes that create experience. So you've got your base chakra, you've got the sexuality. So the base chakra deals with physical being. Then you've got the sexual level, you've got emotional. The heart center is the most important. Then you've got the throat, which is to do with communication. Then you've got in the brain, you've got a level which deals with your objective finite consciousness, and then you've got your spiritual dimension. Your tap into the oneness is your crown chakra, and I think this is what Jesus tried to put over one of the ideas, and I think that's why they put a crown of thorns on the head in the story. Whether it's real or not, I don't know, but the crown of thorns was meant to be to pour scorn on the idea that we are all divine beings. Do you see what I mean about that? Okay. Now, these 7 layers of consciousness are come together here and create a story. We're all expressions of a story. So the solar system is the story of the solar system, the planets, the sun, their movements, every particle that's moving in, it's all a story. And it is the essence of numbers which gives rise to what you refer to as numerology. And it is the way the solar system moves, because each object in the solar system is giving off its essence of meaning. That means that the meaning of the solar system, the meaning as we perceive it here, affects us, because each planet exerts a different layer of these 7 levels. So astrology and numerology are the essential nature, the quality aspect of what we're involved in. And the quantum digital level, the physical dimension, is the expression of that. So, you know, people who like astronomy dismiss astrology. People who like astrology are not that interested in astronomy, usually. They appear to be at odds with one another, but they simply reflect this pseudo-duality that we're experiencing. And so we assemble the story that each of us is going through, you know, on the basis of these numbers. Does that, can you see that?
I'm just thinking about astronomy and astrology. They're at odds often. I'm just thinking the term that came to mind was we have to agree to disagree.
Yes.
And that's the oneness also. It's still within the oneness that one point of view is to see and analyze just the physical. So what we can see with a telescope in astronomy, for example, any probes we may be able to get from meteors, or maybe in the future from other planets. And then there is astrology that gives meaning to the way the planets move. It's just a different viewpoint. But if it's all within the one, then there is not one is better than the other. It's just a different viewpoint. That is all,
yes.
Really.
It's right back to what I started out saying, that number has 2 aspects: the quality, the essence, the meaning, and on the other side, the value. The word value is totally inadequate to express what I'm trying to say. I'm stuck because there isn't a word. You know, you can bring in karma, action, all of that it comes from the value aspect of numbers, and you can't separate these 2 aspects. So astrology is on the essence meaning of it, and astronomy, if you like, is the value aspect. So
yeah, there's something else that comes to mind while you were
yes.
just saying this. In quantum physics, they talk about, is it a particle or is it a wave?
Yes.
So, and I think that's it a bit. Whereas natural sciences like astronomy would look at one object, one particle. And I mean, astrology often looks at this movement, you know, the movement of the planets. You know, it sees a story, a wave. Where is this going? You know, and I think that there's something in that. You know, is it a particle? Do we look at one specific under the microscope, or are we looking at the movements? Where is this trajectory leading? And this trajectory is consists of particles or individual units. So it's always, how do we look at things to explain the reality to ourselves? Do we look at one specific thing, or do we look at the movement?
Well, you've hit exactly on what I've been trying to describe. So we have on the level of the one, we have waves of, I said lines. Now, have you heard of string theory?
I have. I'm not so sure
Well,
what it
what it is
entails.
that if a unit, if a superstring is simply a vibrating line that generates form, matter. Now, what I came to understand is that we exist on these two levels. The higher level is called I call it the analog universe or wave universe, and the lower level is the quantum universe, which is points and particles and matter. Now, the wave. So if you take light, science has said, light behaves like a wave in one situation and like a particle in another. So how can it be both? Well, it's obvious. It's easy to understand if you say on the wave dimension, which is essentially the realm of magnetism, it's a wave. On the lower quantum digital dimension, it's a particle. And the quantum digital dimension is the region where electrical fields act. So you've got the analog magnetic wave dimension. Now, when science talks about a particle, it says that there's something called the Schrödinger wave equation, which they say gives you the probability of where you'll find a particle if you were to measure it as an observer. And they say, well, it only takes form as a particle when you observe it. Otherwise, it's just a wave. Well, because I don't see this at all. The wave function is what decides where your matter is in any one moment. It creates your form in space as a projection of information which manifests on the lower quantum physical dimension. And we are neither of these. But the vibrational level, if you take the units of form are be, you could say that is your physical being. But it isn't. And the wave dimension is the if you like, do you know about differentiation in mathematics? It's we are the vibration that happens. We experience the vibration that relates these two levels together. I don't know of an easier way to express it.
Can I maybe interject? I was thinking while you were explaining this, I was thinking to have a more like day-to-day example of waves in an ocean, yeah?
Yes.
So we can look at the waves, but we could also imagine one drop of water.
Yes.
Well, how it moves through the waves. So we could just
Exactly.
follow that one drop.
Yes.
And so there's these two things, and that's like the particle and the wave, but it doesn't matter because it's one ocean, and that's where the oneness is. Within this oneness, there
Yes.
you can look at particles and follow that, or you can see the general movements of the waves.
Exactly.
Where are the waves
yes,
going?
you do understand. You have understood what I'm saying.
And that I think that
yes.
explains it, in
Yes.
layman's terms, in a way that makes sense.
Well, think about what we had a little chat recently about the universe as a movie, and we were talking about the frames of the movie. They are still pictures, still images constructed from noughts and ones. That's, but when you run the program, you see movement and motion. So but you're seeing it because your mind is putting those frames together. You're not seeing the fact that pictures are flickering from one to another. There is a refresh rate has to be fast enough that you don't see the individual frames, you see the flow.
Yes. So where does
that's it.
Where does the 0 point come into that, into all of
The
that?
zero, zeros and ones, everything is made up from zeros and ones. So your television picture, or your computer picture, whatever it is, what we're looking at each other on these screens, we are just a pattern of what we call, pixels, colored lights assembled. So, and if you say you take a film of 6 people walking along, you see 6 individuals, but there's only one screen. The separation from one person to another is an illusion. Do you see? So there is a dimension where time, so if you've got your movie, the physical movie on this dimension, the lower dimension, is frames of being. What is it that allows you to see this experience the way I'm seeing? If I see you move, or you see me move, you're seeing motion that's not really there. It's it's all still pictures seen in sequence. Consciousness is the light coming through that experiences the movement, the motion, and the emotions, all of everything that is happening on these dimensions. Consciousness is the wave energy that comes through and experiences. So when you're looking at the analogy of the ocean, which is very appropriate, the waves of water are individual water molecules, really. So the wave, so what's real, the water molecule or the wave? The wave is what you call the differential. It's the motion. So the time is made up of fragments of existence that are purely still and stationary. But we experience that it is the light of consciousness that comes through that and experiences it as a holistic movement, if you like, a whole movement.
But everything is existing at the same time, and that's what I said before. It depends how we look at things. Is it an ocean? Is it one water drop or a water molecule? Or is it the wave? And this is all happening. Everything is happening. All these aspects are happening. It's neither nor, it's all of it,
Yes.
And it just depends what we choose to focus our attention on. That's it. And we have a range. We have this ability to focus on different levels of existence, let's say, or different viewpoints. And that's why we can meditate, where we alter our consciousness. We say we're in an altered state because we might experience oneness during meditation or when we sit in nature. And then we see it more like an ocean, maybe we could say. Sometimes we are in a flow, everything goes smoothly during a day, and we feel more like a wave, And sometimes we look at minute details, then we look at one water molecule, so to speak. But just because we're looking at the water molecule doesn't mean life doesn't go on, you know. I mean,
No.
the wave continues, we move with a wave, and the same with the planet, you know. Where I live, I can see the movements of the stars quite easily, because there's some buildings at night. So if you just see the sky, you're not aware that the stars are actually moving. But because I have this reference point of buildings, I can see, hey, it started there on the left, and now it's kind of going that way. All the stars are moving, the moon is moving, and all this. But we here on Earth, we're thinking there's stillness, but this planetary body called Earth is moving through the galaxy around the sun at enormous speed all the time, and we are not aware of it. We are in the wave in this galaxy, and the galaxies move. So, but we're just not aware of it. It would be too confusing, I guess, if we were. But there's so many waves and movements, waves within waves, and that's another way of looking at the fractals, you know. There are waves and movements on this planet alone. Then the planets, our planets move around our sun. The sun moves in this spiral form in our galaxy, which is called the Milky Way. And then the galaxies interact within this universe. So that's one way of looking at fractals as well, what we mentioned
Exactly.
at the beginning.
Yes.
You know?
Yep. You've put it perfectly. You see, it depends which level of or dimension that you experience as to what the experience is. You know, you can look at our interaction as being a collection of molecules doing something, but individually, your molecules don't know what you're doing, who you are, do they? They're just there. But the it's what the essence of the story is the true reality, and that's the infinite state. You're experiencing your reality through senses, through these layers and levels. It all boils down to you are you and I am me, and we're having a conversation. But what has that got to say about where I put my arm, or where you know, where your hair is, or you know, any of it? What the background? And all of this is just trivial detail. The essence of the experience is two people having a conversation, exchanging views and things. Consciousness. So can you see that time? There are two sorts of time. On the quantum digital dimension, time is like a clock, and it creates moments of time, broken down into something that I imagine we call the Planck time, which is a very small moment of time. And you take these moments of time where everything is static and you put them in a line, and it becomes an experience. But we are not the experience. We are the light of consciousness that passes through that to experience it and converts it into infinite essence. And in the infinite essence, we are who we are. So there's the two sorts of time is the clock, if you like, and then there is subjective meaning. So what time is really subjective experience, and each moment, if you take a point in space and time, the subjective quality of that, the wave energy of it, is who, what, when, where, how, why. Because though there is an answer to that at each point of time and each point of space, something is there, something is happening. It could be somebody, it could be a thing. Do you see? But all that is meaning. It's not although it is the quantum digital dimension, this quantum universe, that creates the experience, just as your television screen is seeing me and putting me into pixels, in your mind, I'm not a pattern of pixels, am I? I'm a person. So, see, we're in the pattern of pixels here. The wave state is where you call that the fifth dimension. It's all about wave energy. It's things happening. So in the model of the Taijutsu, you've got the dark state with the white dot of light. This is the physical dimension. You've got the circle with the wavy line. That's the wave energy that's creating motion and the experience. And then you've got the white area, which is the essence. That is where the reality takes place. That is where the love is, and light and is oneness. That's the only reality. But that reality is evolving all the time because of the two aspects of number, the meaning and the value. So the entire physical experience is about values, and so that is why on the physical dimension, the world we're in is in a mess, because we only look at the value of things. What is something worth? What can I sell it for? How much money can I make? We've got this thing, and it's that the key to it all is survival. How can I accumulate enough wealth that I will never starve, even if it means other people will starve?
But that is because we feel as individuals so separated from the one, the
yes,
ocean,
exactly.
That we've kind of built a wall around the water drop, basically,
yes.
the molecule, and we think that's it.
Exactly.
That is one way of looking at it.
It is the valid way. Yes, yes,
because we have bought into this.
yes,
We've bought into our personality that is it. We are separate beings, and I think the way we look at reality has such an impact on the way we experience reality. And I'd like to give an example of that.
yes.
For example, the Vikings, in the ancient days, they thought if they die on the battlefield, like the men, of course,
yes,
mainly, but there were some female warriors as well. If they died on the battlefield, there would be a hero, and they would go to Valhalla, basically,
yes.
to the realm of the gods, and drink with them, meat or whatever they drank, a kind of beer, whatever. But so they were totally fearless. They were so fearless, and people were afraid of them because they were so sure they would go to Valhalla if they die on the battlefield. And that changes everything. They had no fear of death, basically. So whatever, if we think we are just a biological, how do you say, combination of molecules. We're just a biological entity consisting of many cells, and then once the cells no longer function, we die. Some people believe that, a very material point of view of our existence. This can lead to people being really afraid of death, for example. Or they become very nonchalant about it. But some people think their consciousness, and this is just one experience of many. So, and that totally changes the way you feel, how happy you are or unhappy, how you deal with life and everything. And all these different levels we've been talking about, they have such an impact of your individual experience here, which then feeds back, of course, to the one,
Yes.
Whatever your experience is. But I always think we might as well choose an experience within our, we always have some leeway, I think, in life. If we choose something that makes us happy, I prefer it personally.
Well, why do you meditate?
well, to experience these other levels of existence, that
Yes,
that, because I think there are more levels, to
yes, was
know the truth. That for
yes.
me, to know the truth, but everyone has a different purpose or
Well,
intention.
it's because we're so bought into this physical side, the value side of number is real, that we've kind of cut ourselves off from the essence, even though we are the essence, really. We don't see it. We don't accept that we're the essence. So all the spiritual techniques, prayer, meditation, healing, all these things are a way of trying to reactivate that spiritual dimension here, and not just on its own level. We're trying to bring it into the equation on this dimension. So we know that there's that aspect to us, and that we're cut off from it, and we've forgotten that we are it. Although we're in the physical, that is purely sensory experience. That is not the reality. So science is now taking on the idea that we're living in a virtual reality, but they don't look at the consequence of that. You see, that if you put on a machine and you play a computer game and you take on an avatar in that game, when you switch the computer off, you don't die, do you? You simply stop watching the game. Playing it from, you're outside the computer or the phone or whatever it is you're using. You go in your mind, you go into that state, you become that reality, but only while you're playing it. When you stop playing the game, you're still there, still the user of the game. You're still the mind outside it. And this is why we believe in death, because we can't understand that we're not really the physical avatar that you've taken on. We are the controlling essence of it, the experiencer of it. But when we're born, our brains develop. We have objective thinking. We process information, and we don't relate to that other aspect of us. We're cut off from it, and the reason being that we can acquire experience and knowledge through what we do here that we couldn't otherwise experience if we were purely infinite being. If you're in the infinite oneness as an entity expressing itself as an aspect of oneness, there's not much you can do to learn about yourself. By coming here, going through all this, you're able to really understand and develop and evolve.
Yes. And so the forgetfulness that we are born with is part of the game. So we need to do this to have this experience.
Yes.
But having said that, there are some people who are aware, or sometimes
yes, of
children,
course. Yes.
until there's even in the first few years, do remember other existences, or there's that people have an inkling of that, and that does usually they start seeing things not just from the purely physical, but there's nothing wrong with that. I feel in the greater scheme of things, the one wouldn't judge that. The one wouldn't judge that we are just looking after our survival and money and all this, because that's part of the experience here, and it's all good. It's a very when consciousness becomes very crystallized, very much matter, very dense, that is kind of where we are at when we are in this physical experience. But while we're walking around, and all the yogis and all this, what they always say, that they walk around, but they're very well aware that there is more, that there's another experience, that there's oneness and all that, And I think there is a saying in the Bible, I believe it comes from, to be in this world, but not of it,
Exactly.
So we can also compare this life to a play, a theater play. So
exactly,
we are on stage, the stage of life, and Shakespeare has used this analogy also. And we are actors playing a role. We are playing a character, but we are not the character, but we are here to experience what it is like to be that character. And that information, our experience, is being fed into it. And then there are also people watching it, you know, they're watching us also
Yes.
playing out this role, and we are watching others at the same time. So all these different levels are happening at the same time, but we are the actors, we are not the characters.
Yes.
And
No.
sometimes we forget that, and that's okay also.
Yes. Well, that's wonderful, because what acting a role, acting, action. What does action also mean? Karma.
Yeah.
It is karma is takes an action, and through that taijutsu, the yin yang diagram, what that is something I call an analog to digital converter. It takes the every action that you take is a set of physical parameters on the number value scale, and it translates it into wave energy, which in turn creates a purely essential abstract experience in the light of oneness. So every action we perform has an implication for the environment, for other people, or for some, you know, whatever it is. So the good things we do register in the oneness through, because it's a good thing, the goodness. And if we perform actions or acts that are negative or harmful or painful to people, that too gets stored up in the system of the wave system, the energy system. And when we've finished our time here and we review our life, we are able to, you know, like you can replay a video, you can replay your experience of your life, and you can experience what other people experienced of you. So if you did good things or helped somebody, you can experience the pleasure and the joy or the benefit they experienced from what you did for them. But also, if you harm someone, if you cause pain, you can, you know, you will have to experience that from the other person's point of view. In a very graphic sense, you can rerun the experience. It's a game machine as well. And so then, of course, what happens is, if you're going to return here in a new incarnation, in a new body, in a new life, you've then got to work out with the people you were involved with some way of compensation for one another for what you did, good or bad. So the whole thing, it's a learning machine. It's to teach us, because while you're here, you don't know the consequences of what you do. Father, forgive them, they know not what they do, kind of thing. That's why we don't know what we do. We only experience the act. We don't experience the consequences. But this taijutsu, if you like, the Tao, converts all experience into its essence, and it grows. So it's the negative experience is a bit like saying, well, you can learn about fire by studying it, or you can stick your hand in the flame. It's not recommended that way, but it's very effective. And with all the bad things people do on this planet, when people get into wars and kill one another, they're putting their hands in the flame. They're finding out the hard way what's right and what's wrong. And all of that experience, everything we do, the systems that run the planet that are now making our lives very difficult. So if you work for a company that spies on people, as a matter of course, we could name a few, collects information, and does devious things, your organization, that organization doesn't accumulate the karma. It's the individuals who work for the companies that do bad things that accumulate the karma. Do you see what I mean?
I'm not so sure about that, because there can be collective karma
There
also,
is.
and
Yes,
so
no,
like a whole nation can have karma,
yes,
an
exactly. But that's
organization can have
people. That's
also
people.
karma. So if you
Yes.
step into that organization and you didn't have the karma, you still work through that.
Oh
Um,
no, I agree
and
entirely. I'm not saying, what I'm saying is there is collective karma, there's group karma, national karma. It's, yes, you're quite right. But the government, say, that does some act that throws people on the streets and does this, that, and the other, the government doesn't accumulate the karma. It is the people. It is the humanity that accumulates the karma. The systems themselves that organize these things, they don't accumulate the karma. They are simply abstractions. There are no organizations, but an organization, is it like a government? There is the governments will organize a war, say. Where does the karma go? Well, not the government, but to the people who get involved in it. Do you see what I mean? Yes, group karma is a very real thing.
mm,
Group
um,
consciousness. We're in a hive mind.
yeah, I mean, I was thinking of karma also another way of looking at it. It's really coming back to the water, the ripple effect we're talking
Yes,
about.
yes,
So,
waves.
and so if you throw a stone, it ripples out. But I think there are many stones are being thrown
Yes, the
at the
analog
same
wave dimension.
at the same time, and because everything we do has an effect. The reason for that is that it's all one system.
Yes,
If it wasn't all one system, then you could throw a stone and it might go some place else, and
yes,
we don't care about this.
no,
But it is actually fundamentally all one,
yes,
and that is why it's a closed system, basically. So
yes,
everything we do, it has to go somewhere. It has to affect everything that is in the system. And that
yes,
is how I understand it. And
yes,
I'd like to add also that I think from the point of view of the source, there is no good and bad, really.
no,
It's just even this is kind of our way of looking at it from a human point of view, where we give value to some actions and other value to other actions. I mean, when anthropologists, for example, they visit sometimes these indigenous tribes, and some tribes live totally differently, and they have very different value systems, and what is
exactly, yes,
deemed as good in one tribe or one culture or civilization may not be deemed good in another. So it's very these are just variations for us to express, but of course I can have, as being an individual, I can, of course I need to protect myself to some extent. Otherwise, I can't exist as an individual unit.
no,
So, any attacks on me, I have to thwart them somehow. I kind of have to defend myself to some degree. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here, basically. I have to have some boundaries also. But yeah, so that's how I see karma a little bit.
you're
But
perfectly
I
right.
think also, again, how we look at karma. I know some people, they say, oh yeah, it's karma, it's my karma because I did this, and so we can
Yes,
overly put our attention to that, and then we forget that we're here now, and we forget just to follow our heart, our highest excitement, and we can explain everything away with it as well. There's a danger in that, and that is, again, it's so detailed. Where we put our attention is the basis for everything in this very complex structure of reality, you know, and in a split second, if we change our attention, it changes everything. So if we believe that karma is punishment, then we will make it so. We will
Yes.
experience our reality so. If we buy into the fact that we are just a physical entity and consciousness is just the effect, the consequence of all these, the brain activity, then we make that so. If we think we're spiritual beings having a physical experience, then we will experience it so. So the question is for me always, what experience do we choose? What thoughts do we choose to have? And in order to make the choice, we have to come back to awareness, to this 0 point. And I tell you how I understand it, and you might not agree with it. When we come back to the analogy of a film, you know, there are all these frames. Every frame could be a whole reality by itself in a split second, second by second by second, frame by frame by frame. What's in between the frames, you know? And for me, that's the 0 point. When you come, for a moment, your awareness is in between two frames, the gap between the frames.
Exactly.
And from there, you can see the whole structure. You could zoom into a frame. You could see the wave. You can see where the story is going. And that's where the change is possible, because when we're in the 0 point, you can say, I choose a different frame because I can see that I can.
Yes.
Because I have the overview. That's how I understand it. And I don't know if there's one way. That's my point of view. Yeah, you know.
I agree with that. I could have said all that myself.
Okay.
You know, we exist between the frames, not in them. That's really what I've been trying to say. We are the flow, not the frames. We are not the physical manifestation. We are the waves of energy and consciousness that experience it. But as far as karma is concerned, every act has two tendencies. It either supports oneness or it goes towards separation. And that's what karma bases it on. It doesn't base it on what you perceive your action was, because you can't know what any action can lead to or do. But it impacts on the entire state of existence of everything, not just this universe, but everything is affected by every act. But while we are in the finite perspective, you know, we have some level of choice. We can say, oh, you know, I'm going to see it like this, or I'm going to see it like that. But how the oneness sees everything, we can't know till we're back in it. So you can do something thinking you're doing good, and that there may be a benefit in the oneness, but it can also cause harm. You might not be aware that by doing one thing, you've changed things that you don't even know about. And that can support the opposite. What we would call the good and the bad, as you say, that the oneness doesn't see anything bad, but the shadow is the unconscious state where we perform all these actions in the dark. We're lost in the dark. We only see it through a glass darkly. We can't perceive the real reality, the consciousness, the light behind everything. So we don't always know what we're doing. We can only hope that we're doing good. Do you see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, you know, you could save a person's life and they turn out to be a monster that does a lot of harm. You can't say whether an action is good or bad, but the oneness, it reacts to it as it is, as being whatever it is, in an objective, absolute way. So that's what karma is. It's not about reward and punishment. It's about enlightenment. So if you do something that harms, then you need to experience something that makes you understand this. And you when you're back in the other dimension, you know whether you did good or not. You can be tracked. You can trace it through the consciousness, the oneness, whether everything. And when we pass, the shadows retain this sort of echo of everything that's happened here, but it doesn't affect the oneness. The oneness is above and beyond and outside of all of this. It can only ever be love and light in the oneness.
Well, when I think of any screenwriting, they always have a villain, So,
oh yes,
and
yes, or a story.
Yes,
Yes,
and
there's
there's
got to be a plot.
a protagonist, and there are obstacles, and there's usually a villain. And a good film, that drama, is where the villain is very good, because
Yes.
the villain is sometimes, I think, the villain is more important than the protagonist. And of course, in a way, the villain, it's all in one person. I think these are only aspects of ourselves that are
Yes.
playing out, and the
It's
villain.
the role.
The shadow is often something that we haven't integrated or acknowledged. And because we haven't, it goes down not a wrong way. It kind of overemphasizes, if we, how can I say this? It's often our strength often comes from that shadow part within ourselves, that we just want to be doing good and so on. But in order to do good, we need to have clear boundaries. We need to have a good defense system also, so that we can spread the light, let's say, And
Yes.
if we haven't integrated this oomph within us, let's say, doesn't mean we have to do like harmful things to others, but if we can present a show of strength within us to others that comes from maybe this shadow, which is it's just an unexpressed, unacknowledged faculty often we have, and we haven't lived it out. That's often the shadow within ourselves, So, and I think of this in the whole scheme of things as well. The shadow makes us sometimes aware of something we didn't know we had, And even when you gave the example, we might save someone's life and they turn out to be a villain and do lots of bad things,
That's their karma, not ours.
Yes, and I think first of all, we didn't know that,
No.
So we if we follow our own principles, we follow our heart, we just save that person, and then they go out and do many bad things. Now, by them doing many good things, they enable so many people to get lessons they wouldn't have otherwise gotten. We don't
Yes.
know what other implication this has. I mean, I don't advocate doing bad things, obviously.
No.
But the way the story goes is very implicate. We only learn, often we only learn by crisis, by encountering obstacles. And sometimes these obstacles are in the shape of a person. Now, I mean, of course, I would like to have peace and all of that in the world, but sometimes we learn through opposition. And so we don't know the further implication even a so-called villain in the play has for us to learn and grow together. But as I said, my disclaimer here really is I don't want anyone to come to harm. I don't advocate that at all, and ideally, I would like us to be in a peaceful world where everyone can follow their own passion. But I'm just saying the meaning of this play can be quite intricate, and there are many ways of looking at it.
Exactly. Yes, that's very well said. I mean, my example, I wasn't saying you did wrong would have done wrong by saving somebody's life. That you can only do good. What I'm saying, what they then go on and do is their karma, not yours. You've simply done your best, and that's all we can ever do. In a state, see, the finite objective mind can't know the consequences of what it's doing. Then that's why we're in shadow. Otherwise, there'd be no growth. We are here to learn, to grow, and in the end, it isn't really that important. It's all an illusion in that sense. Or a virtual reality, perhaps, is a better way of looking at it. You just come and do your best. And it depends on the individual's level of spiritual development as to whether they try to do the best for other people, or whether they simply try to play the game and get what they can out materially. That's down to them, and it's a lack of perception. Or some people can see the benefit of doing the right thing and doing good. We're here with blinkers, with like blindfolds. We can't really, on our consciousness, I mean on our eyes, we can't see what's really happening, and we can only do our best. There's nothing more we can do than our best.
On that note, I think we come to a close today.
Okay.
It was lovely talking to you, Terry. I hope we can do this again soon.
Yes.
And I wish you a good day.
And thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you,
No problem.
Desiree.
Okay.
Okay.